Ladybug, Homelander. Is it possible to find two heroes who are so diametrically opposed? I mean, really, what do they have in common besides lying to the public? In all seriousness, they are so very different that honestly I'm kind of lying Homelander isn't a hero. One's from a gory comic adaptation, one's an original IP that's a kids show. Both have very clear inspirations from some of the most popular heroes on the planet, and both are pretty underrated in power scaling. Despite what the memes say, Homelander does not, in fact, lose to every fictional character ever. Just most of them. But the more realistic setting of the boys and his lack of a true challenge does make it pretty hard for anyone to scale him substantially high. Ladybug, on the other hand, is more underrated because of general ignorance of what she can do. That, and I have multiple videos on my second channel that show how some people just do not want to entertain the idea that a teenager from a cartoon they find cringe doesn't instantly get destroyed by their favorite character. And so, I've decided to pit them against each other in a more substantial video. Like my video on how Will Random vs the Seven is one-sided. Let's go over what they can do. Homelander is the main hero in the world of the boys. He's the strongest, the fastest, the most terrifying. He's generally smart unless the writers don't want him to be, but who doesn't that apply to? However, Homelander is less a hero and more a celebrity, a product, meant to be the poster boy of Vought International, the company that produces Compound V, which is what gives people superpowers. As far as Vought is concerned, Compound V is the main thing they sell. Homelander is just the best form of it they can produce, and well, he isn't exactly the greatest. Oh, who am I kidding? The CEO called him bad product to his face, it's still funny. And then in a very convoluted plot, finding himself in the office of the President of the United States. Sort of. Homelander himself is the son of the previous greatest superhero, Soldier Boy, and was groomed to be the world's greatest hero. Unfortunately, that involved psychologically manipulating him into being a dangerous psycho, not only with a deep craving for affection and praise, but also a superiority complex that makes him believe he's better than everyone. And at least when it comes to a fight, he's not wrong. Homelander has superhuman strength and speed, highly attuned senses, flight and heat vision strong enough to rip planes in half. He usually either cuts his opponents down or relies on his brute strength to defeat them, but that doesn't mean he is completely unskilled. Soups and the boys do receive some training in combat, he just doesn't use them and is rarely challenged enough to try, so his actual skill level isn't that high. But he does display he's not completely out of his depth when he battles people like Maeve and Soldier Boy. Homelander has been stated to be powerful enough to survive every weapon humanity could throw at him, which would include nukes. While this is probably meant to be hype considering the character saying it, and there's no way they've actually checked, if we do believe that Homelander can survive the strongest weapons humanity can throw at him, that would put his durability on par with the SAR bomber, a hydrogen bomb that is easily city level. If that's a bit much for you, other methods of scaling his power exist. In the cartoon episode that's canon to the show, Homelander survives the explosion of a power plant and just keeps going, putting him at about multi-city block level. And he's strong enough to one-shot Black Noir with a single punch, who was present to also survive that explosion with relative ease. He's stronger than Stormfront, who is stated to be capable of throwing things just under the weight of a 747, and later states he could carry a passenger plane if he was on solid ground. That would put his lifting strength at above 400 tons. When it comes to his speed, there are some questions in regard to his superiority to A-Train, whose highest speed scaling, mostly from statements, puts him at about Mach 3 for bullet dodging. But I must mention that he's been shown to be able to move fast enough that other people appear to be standing still. However, this was at the time when he was juicing himself with V, and his speed recorded in-universe while doing so was actually slower than the Mach 3 I just gave him. Homelander, however, has shown the ability to fly much faster, reacting to an explosion and saving Butcher in a way that puts him in the Mach 20 ranges. He can also consistently outfly aircrafts and cross continents by himself. I kinda wish I could scale his speed to Stormfront's lightning, it'd make him a more interesting character to use, but no one in the show has ever actually dodged it or even really reacted to it, so I can't. One thing that's pretty underrated is his endurance, as when he was a kid, as part of his testing, He was put inside a giant oven where he was forced to endure heat capable of melting a human being for significant stretches of time. In those conditions, despite not being damaged, he still had to deal with the pain, even being able to observe what was happening outside. In summary, Homelander has impressive physical strength, given the capacity to one-shot city block to multi-city block level characters like his fellow Supes, and supersonic flight and reaction speeds. He could potentially walk off city level attacks depending on how much you believe his hype. He's generally not stupid and is at least capable of basic combat movements if necessary, albeit definitely carried by his abilities, with his greatest weakness being a complete lack of real experience. So now, let's look at his opponent. Marinette Dupen Cheng was a relatively regular kid who was one day given the miraculous of the Ladybug. With that, she became one of Paris' protectors along with her partner / love interest, Chat Noir. They battle against the mysterious Hawkmoth / Shadow Moth / Monarch, who has the miraculous of the butterfly, which gives him the ability to create champions with unique powers who he uses to threaten the city in order to obtain the Ladybug and Black Cat miraculous, which are the most powerful of the set. Monarch creates these villains using Akuma that target emotions, and the stronger the emotions are, the stronger the villain he can create. The Ladybug in particular is tied to the Kwame of creation, Tiki, and is one half of a universe-bending entity known as Gimme, the Kwame of reality. And that's without getting into the multiversal aspects of the Kwame's existence. For the sake of fairness, Ladybug will be restricted to only her miraculous, because frankly, with the right combination of other miraculous abilities, there are genuinely not many characters who could even dream of fighting her. Marinette can use the Ladybug miraculous to transform into Ladybug. This form has on multiple occasions been stated to make her nearly invulnerable to damage. Very few things in the show have actually been able to harm characters wearing miraculous suits. One is her partner, Chat's Cataclysm ability, which makes sense considering he's tied to the destructive aspect of Gimme and has been shown to easily be able to destroy planet-sized structures as well as scaling to universal destruction. But there are other examples of them being harmed, specifically by very powerful villains with rage specifically targeting the heroes. For a true sense of how durable they are though, we have to take a brief detour to discuss the miraculous that are weaker than theirs. In one episode, an Akuma gets separated from Hawkmoth and creates a villain named Star Train without him noticing. This villain took over a fully occupied train traveling from Paris to England and flew it this close to another galaxy in a couple minutes. If we assume that that's our closest neighbor, the Andromeda Galaxy, and the flight took the same amount of time as the episode's runtime showed, this would require constantly outputting solar system level energy, which means Akuma with stronger negative emotions would have even more power. If that's too much for you, Stormy Weather 2 could create a supervolcano powerful enough to push the Earth out of orbit, a feat that, depending on what in the episode you consider a reliable measure, ranges from planetary to large planet levels of power. Then, moving on to the Peacock Miraculous, Argos created Red Moon, a being that gives him the power to snap away anyone his light touches. It's heavily implied Red Moon was able to grow to the size of the actual moon. The reason all of this is relevant is because in Season 5, Monarch created a villain named Kiko, who was motivated by serious embarrassment and anger, turning the kickboxer underneath into a giant teddy bear boxer. On top of that, it also had access to the Miraculous of the Tiger, an entirely different Miraculous with the power to deal a single powerful punch, which should scale to the previous mentioned displays of power the Butterfly had. Despite all of this, and the fact they were being wielded by a professional kickboxer, two relatively inexperienced characters wielding the Ladybug and Black Cat Miraculous were able to take a surprise punch from him and immediately recover. This would put the durability of these suits at least at the high end of solar system level, if not higher, or large planetary depending on what you're willing to accept. Even if you want to disregard all of that in favor of destruction that we can see with our own eyes, the impact of the Tiger Miraculous caused this explosion. And yes, that's the Eiffel Tower. Please note that Ladybug and Chat Noir were right there when the impact happened and were able to recover and keep going. Compared to their durability though, Miraculous heroes aren't that impressive in physical strength. But that's still nothing to sneeze at, as they can easily throw cars, pull falling buildings upright, and jump several stories in the air. But their most impressive feats come from how they scale to their opponents. Chad is able to sword fight with Ikari Gozen, a villain with the power to demolish buildings with a single strike. The clashes also caused this explosion, which is calculated to be roughly town level in AP. This may have been done with a staff, but Ladybug and Shat show that their strength without their weapons isn't that different, considering Ladybug was able to catch a brainwashed Shat's attacks with her bare hands. They also show relativity to villains like the Mime, who can cut down then catch half of the Eiffel Tower, weighing in at roughly 5,000 tons. And the very first villain both heroes faced was Stoneheart, a villain who grows bigger and stronger with each hit he takes. In one of his smallest forms, Stoneheart is able to knock a skyscraper down like this. A skyscraper of this size would be in the hundreds of thousands of tons range. Ladybug is later able to knock him down. Then, when he's much bigger and stronger, she's able to use her yo-yo to forcibly pull his hand to his head. The yo-yo itself, her main weapon, is pretty insane. It's a nigh unbreakable infinite string that can act as a net, grappling hook, cage, and garrote wire capable of crumbling bridges. With it, she's able to do things like stop meteors, trains, and even catch falling planes, as shown in this image, representing her thinking of actions she's done off-screen. These are kind of hard to scale due to rudimentary images, but in season 1 she does give a mildly dubious statement that she could have easily stopped this meteor by herself. Doing so would require town levels of power. On screen, she's used it to hold back the largest form of Strikeback. Strikeback later divided himself into 3, each about half its height, one of which threw this Ferris wheel like it was a volleyball. It could weigh anything from 200 to 365 tons compared to real-life Ferris wheels. Speed-wise, Ladybug has shown the ability to react to lasers and light-based projectiles, making her easily relativistic to light speed from as early as season 1. But for the more extreme side of their speed scaling, we go back to Star Train and her flight to another galaxy. With all previously mentioned assumptions, her travel speed is over 189 billion times the speed of light. Now, I was ready to brush this off as just something no one in the series scales to. And then Pegasus, using the Horse Miraculous, shoots his power from inside the train to significantly ahead of it so it can travel through a portal back to Earth. This means that the ranged attack speed of the Horse Miraculous is over 189 billion times the speed of light, which should be comparable to other miraculous powered range abilities. And considering every villain in season 5 had a miraculous, this would significantly raise the speed scale of the show. This isn't even the biggest speed feat in the series. Chad Blanc, who we can generally consider to be Chat Noir with no limits on his power, was able to completely dwarf the Milky Way galaxy with this massive universe-destroying cataclysm in seconds, putting his attack speed at 1.5 trillion times the speed of light. Remember, the Black Cat is the Ladybug's equal. And if we assume he wasn't holding his attack speed back while fighting Ladybug earlier, then the 189 billion times FTL calc becomes a lot more convincing than it was alone. Rejecting all of that still puts Ladybug and Shat at relativistic to FTL speeds even before we count the power-ups that allow them to fly and travel in space. It's also important to note that while in her suit, Ladybug gains incredible agility and skill to the point of keeping up with Shat, who is trained in both karate and fencing. Both heroes have also gone up against akumatized professional level fencers and boxers with superpowers meant to enhance those skills, and won. This despite the fact that at best the only combat training Marinette's gotten is implied Tai Chi with her mom, the casual exercise version. Ladybug's main superpower is the Lucky Charm, which allows her to summon whatever she needs to win whatever situation she's currently found herself in. It's an extremely intuitive power that basically kickstarts her brain to create convoluted plans for victory. It's given her car keys that were able to walk on a specific random car that was underwater she would later use to trap her opponent in. It's also given her something to help her notice and escape an ambush she herself had no idea was coming. She can summon complex machinery like a laser gun or a butterfly pheromone tracker, vehicles like fire trucks, and even massive weapons, though in character she doesn't use them on her opponents. Coward. It's implied, though never proven, that the Lucky Charm weapons could hurt miraculous wielders, which would be insane, but I'm not in the position to dig into that. The Lucky Charm basically has a 99% success rate, only failing in situations where most of her teammates immediately become enemies, the villain gives up, or someone immediately targets and destroys it. While the items she summons are usually small, that's because that's all she needs. She stopped stormy weather and her aforementioned planet-moving supervolcano with what appeared to be a pencil. The 3 quadrillion kilogram larger than Earth pastry Shat destroyed was summoned with the same power by Tiki, and while Ladybug's use of the power is less destructive, it's not stated to be weaker than Tiki's, just better controlled. Theoretically, Ladybug could summon literally anything, even another planet. She also has the miraculous cure ability that allows her to reverse all damage from a fight, from destroyed and displaced buildings or planets to death and timeline erasure. If the universe and timeline itself are damaged, she can, and has, fixed it. Previously, using her powers like this would put her on a 5-minute time limit before detransforming, but as of right before the season 5 finale, she has overcome that weakness and showed great proficiency in switching between Lucky Charms and combat to dominate her final battle against Monarch. Because of this, she could potentially stay transformed forever. Her partner Chat was able to take part in a losing time loop battle for about 3 months without any negative effects to his mind, and Bonix was kept in stasis for about 5,000 years after she was sent back in time. So yeah, Homelander gets destroyed. Easily. It's not even a contest. Even taking out the absurd numbers of Star Train, Ladybug is thousands of times faster than him and has much better strength scaling. The closest he comes to her is in the attack potency of their punches, with both of them being above multi-city block level, but she will damage him long before he could damage her, and that's if he hits her. His heat vision wouldn't even be the strongest heat vision she's been hit by. Even flight wouldn't be an advantage because her space power-up lets her fly at sub-relativistic speeds. He might have more experience with his powers, but she's dealt with well over 100 unique supervillains, most of whom needed to be defeated by having their powers deduced and being outsmarted, and she is the main strategist of her team. In terms of combat experience, her 1 year as a hero eclipses his entire life. I mean, do I really have to go over her battle IQ feats like outmaneuvering an opponent that makes people move backwards, or taking on and manipulating a boxer with 6 arms into losing a fight? It is simply not even a little close. And really, that's not surprising. Ladybug is an action show and is constantly fighting magic villains to protect the world. Homelander's biggest challenge is public opinion, and the writers not letting him kill the main characters. Scaling Homelander to a nuke is considered iffy because it was just a statement from someone who definitely has the motive to lie about it. But Ladybug surviving an explosion that's comparable to a nuke on screen was frankly just another Tuesday for her. And we haven't even gotten into what the Lucky Charm could give her because it's usually reserved for challenges. But tell me your thoughts on this matchup and who the winner is down below. And if you enjoy videos like this, do check out my video on whether or not Will Vandal could take out the entire team by herself. If you need any consolation, she is not as strong as Ladybug.
Oh, almost forgot. Shout out to my patrons, A and Skyman.
Also hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content. Thank you and good day.